a decade since its inception, Formula E, the only all-electric single-seater racing series, has finally made it to India, and it's happening right here in the city of Hyderabad. In fact, I am right now standing inside the team garage of Jaguar TCS standing for Tata Consultancy Services, which came on as the chief sponsor for the team in 2021. Now, Formula E is the only FIA grade motorsport that takes place on an actual city circuit. And so a proper FIA grade circuit has been created right here in the heart of Hyderabad, next to the Hussain Sagar Lake. And I'm told the grandstands are already sold out. So we're in for quite a spectacle tomorrow. But before we get into the final details, here are some of the things that you need to know about this sport.
Formula E is the only FIA sport to feature pure electric race cars which race not on a track but on a city circuit around the world, including cities like Sao Paulo, Brazil, Rome, Cape Town and Berlin, among others. Since 2014, Formula E has witnessed a steady influx of participation from legacy car brands like Jaguar, Porsche, Maserati, Nissan and even Mercedes-Benz. In its current form, Formula E uses its Gen 3 race cars which produce 600 kilowatt of peak power and are lighter, smaller and more powerful than their Gen 1 and Gen 2 antecedents. While Gen 1 race cars ran out of juice halfway through the race, requiring the racer to swap cars in the pit lane, Gen 3 cars are capable of running the entire course of a race, recovering 40% of battery power while doing so. The current format also includes an attack mode, which, much like Formula 1's DRS zone, allows for faster acceleration for a limited period. In this case, by giving the driver access to 24 kilowatts of additional power. This is used in tandem with sensors placed on the racetrack, which can increase the car's entry speed while going into a corner. Each city circuit must be no more than 10 meters wide and no longer than 2.9 kilometers. The circuit near Hussain Sagar Lake features 17 turns and is 2.8 kilometers long, with the race lasting for 32 laps of intense wheel-to-wheel racing. No racer is allowed a spare car, and while teams are free to use their own powertrains, all must use the same batteries manufactured by Williams. Unlike Formula 1, the cars must also run on all-weather tires using the same compound for the entire season. But where did India feature in Formula E's grand scheme of things? And just how did Hyderabad come into the picture? For this, I decided to ask the man himself, the CEO of Formula E, Jamie Regal.
First of all, when we think about new markets, I'll speak more generally in terms of countries. How do we think about the markets we want to go into? We want to go into markets that have attractive economic trends, growing markets where sport is popular, ideally motorsport, markets that are important to our teams and our partners and our manufacturers. So, India ticked all those boxes, first of all. And then the question is, okay, what are the right cities to be in? Formula E is always trying to be in urban areas, right? So really that's in the DNA of the championship, is we race in the heart of cities. Makes it challenging, to be honest, right? Because we're building these racetracks right in the heart of the city. When we think of Hyderabad, right, we think of technology, we think of innovation. And then the Telangana government had a really strong commitment to pushing forward with the state as a green state, right? And committed to sustainability and environmental trends, which of course is dear to our hearts. So yeah, it was a very natural fit. But we have a lot of conversations with a lot of cities that ultimately don't come to fruition. So Hyderabad's in a select group.
So would you say it was easy dealing with the authorities and the civic bodies to set up such a monumental track in such a limited time span?
Yeah, I mean, I think the time span speaks for itself. I mean, I remember when it first came to our attention, I think it was the autumn of 2021. And I thought, when I first heard, I said, okay, so this would be 2024, 25, that's the typical cycle. But the level of commitment, the Telangana government officials and Greenco came to some of our races last year, visited, saw what it took to put on a race, and that will and that commitment was there. But it's a huge undertaking, right? I mean, whenever we go into a new market, it's a challenge. And I think that commitment on both sides is what's going to lead to a successful race this weekend.
How do you see the future of Formula E playing out? Because we've seen so many legacy players enter this field. Do you also see EV startups across the world? There's Rimac, Rivian, Tesla obviously being one of them. Have there been talks for any of them to come into the fray?
Well, that's right. I mean, I think you've got a couple things going on, right? I mean, you mentioned Tesla. There's no doubt that very early on, Alejandro, our founder, and Formula E had a vision around electric motorsport and electric mobility. In 2012 was really when Formula E was conceived. So at that time, probably Elon Musk was one of the few other people really with that same vision.
Yeah.
So you need disruptors, you need new entrants. But on the other hand, you have legacy companies, as you say, who have different business models. You say, hey, we have to make that shift as well. And that's driven a little bit by government regulation. It's really driven by consumer demand now. I think what most people find when they drive an electric car, despite maybe their perception, the experience is really positive. They really enjoy it. And that's driving that supply, right? So manufacturers are seeing it and they're coming in. I mean, to your question directly, look, we have NIO, which is a Chinese pure play electric manufacturer, number 2 market share in China. And, they're in the championship, really from the beginning. So they're, for us, like, we want to have, legacy is maybe not quite the right word, but established existing auto manufacturers are making the shift. So you have, for example, Porsche, right? With the Taycan, it sold more than the 911 last year. Right. If you think about that, that's a pretty incredible stat, right? The 911 is a 60-year-old, 70-year-old product, right? The icon of their lineup. Taycan is only 4 years old, and it's already outselling in terms of volume. On the other hand, we have Jaguar, who's making that shift to electric 100% by 2025.
Yeah.
So, all the companies have their own strategies, and really we're just trying to use the R&D platform and the marketing platform for Formula E to help them.
But despite the record time in which this remarkable track has come up, the temperatures and the dust did present a considerable challenge for the drivers, as told to me by the team principal of Jaguar TCS Racing, James Barclay.
So our job is to prepare in the best way possible, and prior to coming here this week, we've actually spent a lot of time in the simulator with the drivers preparing for the circuit. So where the corners go, the layout, all that side is quite well prepared now. The critical thing is what we saw from a setup point of view on the simulator relevant here? And that's the work we've been doing and hoping that'll be quite accurate. Now, we have a very good simulator tool. Normally that's quite accurate, but this is a brand new circuit. Whenever you come to a brand new track where you've never been before, there can be some variables. So the key thing for us in the early practice sessions will be checking the simulation to the real world. Is there a difference? Are we close? And adjusting as appropriate. So that's the kind of the first part of the weekend that we have to focus on. But the track itself, incredibly exciting track, high speed, probably one of the highest speeds we'll see all season in Formula E here. We have a combination of high speed, medium and low speed corners. So it has a bit of everything, but it has a great flow and the drivers have enjoyed driving it already. So I think the signs offer a fantastic racetrack. I think the one thing we obviously need to make sure is that the track is clean as well. Normally the track's quite dusty in the early sessions, the cars will be sliding around. So as the weekend progresses, you'll see the lap times improve and get quicker as the teams, the drivers get used to the circuit, but importantly, as the track also cleans up, because this is not a permanent circuit. It's a road which we've closed for this weekend. So that's part of the progression we'll see this weekend.
Indeed, the dust did prove to be a proper challenge for the racers, whose time on the simulator hadn't prepared them for the heat, the dust and visibility issues that led to some pretty scary moments during qualifying. Still, an event of such grand scale may bring some tenuous benefit to India's EV market after all.
Yeah, it's a really important reason why we raced, kind of a number of reasons, but two key ones. Firstly, of course, from a brand point of view, is demonstrating Jaguar's transition to become an all-electric modern luxury car company from 2025. But the other key reason why we race is that it's a real-world testbed for electric vehicle technology. These are the most efficient electric vehicles in the world. We're pushing the boundaries of the technologies in order to win in a very competitive world championship of motorsport. So absolutely, that know-how, that knowledge that we're learning, that's of course absolutely accessible for Jaguar Land Rover vehicles, but absolutely for the broader charter ecosystem as part of what we really enjoy being part of that ecosystem. That benefit we have, that know-how across the ecosystem works both ways.
The dust, debris and the heat didn't prove to be an impediment for the 22 racers on the grid. Some of whom, like Jaguar TCS's Sam Bird, have been with Formula E from the very start. Although Bird and his teammate Mitch Evans got a DNF towards the end, the race itself saw a very thrilled audience with packed grandstands erupting in roars every time the cars approached their corner. Thrills, suspense, drama. Formula E's inaugural race in the country gave a motorsport-starved audience plenty to whet its appetite. audience, which also included one of the country's biggest sports stars. With the Telangana government having signed a 4-year contract with Formula E, this could very well be the moment that marks the resurgence of international motorsport in India. But the big question remains, what does hosting an event so unprecedented in scale hold for India's EV dreams?
India, there's a lot of demand and there's a lot of curiosity around EVs, even though the infrastructure is considered slightly patchwork. How do you think an event like this can sort of help, make EVs more mainstream?
Well, I think this is a global challenge, right? I mean, I think obviously each country, each market has its own idiosyncrasies, but big picture, if I go back in a very short period of time, 5-6 years ago, a lot of skepticism about the performance of electric cars, concern about the charging infrastructure, how long can the battery last? I mean, those are all really valid. How much choice do I have if I want something other than a Tesla, right? So those are all, big issues. And what we're trying to do with the sport is use motorsport, use Formula E to inspire and to showcase that, hey, electric cars can be super high performant. We're going to try to bring in what we call boost charging later this season, right? So we're using the technology in the race to be able to demonstrate that actually you're going to be able to charge your car pretty quickly. That doesn't mean you can do it tomorrow, but really what we're showcasing is the future here in 2023, where the market's going to be 4 or 5 years' time.